The first time my brother asked me to sell our childhood home, I thought he was joking. "Just sign the papers, Daniel," Mark said. "There's nothing left for us there." I looked across the restaurant table at him. "Nothing?" He nodded. "Our parents are gone. The house has been empty for almost 6 years. It's falling apart. Why keep paying taxes on it?" He had a point. But something about the way he said it bothered me. Our childhood home wasn't just an old building. It was where our mother had taught us to ride bicycles in the driveway. Where our father had built a wooden swing in the backyard. Where Mark and I had spent summers fighting over the television and winters hiding from our parents whenever we'd broken something. I hadn't been inside since our mother died. "Why are you suddenly in such a hurry?" I asked. Mark looked away. "I've got bills." "How many?" "Daniel, don't make this difficult." That was when I knew there was more to the story. Our father had left the house equally to both of us. Neither of us could sell it without the other's signature. I refused. "I want to see the house first." Mark's face tightened. "There's nothing to see." "Then you won't mind coming with me?" He didn't answer. 2 days later, I drove back to the neighborhood. The house looked worse than I remembered. The front windows were dusty. The garden had turned into weeds. The old swing was still hanging from the tree. I stood at the front door for several seconds before unlocking it. The smell hit me immediately. Dust. Old wood. And something else. Something strangely familiar. I walked through the living room. Everything was almost exactly where we'd left it. My mother's old chair. My father's bookshelf. The broken clock above the fireplace. I went upstairs. My childhood bedroom still had the faded blue wallpaper. Mark's room was across the hallway. I opened his old closet. Empty. Then I remembered something. The basement. Our father had always forbidden us from going down there alone. He used to say it was dangerous because of the old electrical wiring. But when I was 12, I had once asked Mark why Dad kept the basement locked. Mark had said, "Because Dad doesn't want us to find something." At the time, I thought he was joking. Now I wasn't so sure. I went downstairs. The basement door was locked. I searched the kitchen drawers until I found an old key. It fit. The door opened. The basement was darker than I remembered. I switched on the light. 3 bulbs flickered. There were old boxes everywhere. Christmas decorations. Broken furniture. My father's tools. I started searching. After 20 minutes, I found nothing. Then I noticed something strange. The concrete wall behind the shelves looked different. One section had fresh paint. I moved the shelves. Behind them was a metal door. My heart started beating faster. There was no handle. Only a small keypad. I stared at it. Why would my father have a keypad in our basement? I tried random numbers. Nothing. Then I remembered my father's favorite phrase. He used to say it whenever Mark and I asked him about money. "Family first." I entered, family. The keypad beeped. The door opened. I stood completely still. Behind it was a narrow room. There were shelves filled with folders. Dozens of them. I pulled out the first file. It contained bank statements. The second contained property records. The third contained photographs. I picked up one photograph. It showed my father standing outside a building I didn't recognize. Beside him was another man. I turned it over. A date was written on the back. 4 months before Dad died. Then I found a folder with Mark's name on it. I opened it. Inside were pages of bank transfers. Large amounts of money. Money sent from my father's account to Mark. The dates went back years. I couldn't breathe. Why had Mark been receiving money from Dad secretly? Then I found something worse. A document dated 6 months before our father died. It was a legal agreement. According to the document, our father had transferred ownership of another property to Mark. But Mark had never mentioned it. I kept searching. Then I found a handwritten note. My father's handwriting. Daniel must never know. My hands began shaking. I read the next line. Mark promised me he would protect the family. I sat down. What had Mark promised? And why had Dad specifically written that I must never know? Then I heard footsteps upstairs. Someone had entered the house. I quickly turned off the basement light. The footsteps came closer. I heard the basement door open. Then Mark's voice echoed through the darkness. Daniel? I didn't answer. He walked down the stairs. Daniel, I know you're here. I held my breath. He reached the bottom. Then he switched on the light. His eyes immediately went toward the hidden room. And when he saw the documents in my hands, his face changed completely. Where did you find those? I stood up. You tell me. Mark stared at me. You shouldn't have opened that door. Why? He didn't answer. I held up the document. What did Dad mean when he wrote that you promised to protect the family? Mark looked toward the stairs. Then he whispered, because if you know what happened the night Dad died, you won't ever look at me the same way again. Mark stood at the bottom of the basement stairs, staring at me. Because if you know what happened the night Dad died, you won't ever look at me the same way again. I felt my throat tighten. What happened? He looked at the documents in my hands. Put them down. No, Daniel, you don't understand. Then explain it. Mark rubbed his face. Our father wasn't supposed to die that night. I stared at him. What does that mean? He was going to leave. Leave where? Us. I shook my head. Dad would never abandon us. He wasn't abandoning us. He was running. From what? Mark looked toward the hidden room. From people who wanted him dead. I laughed nervously. That sounds insane. I wish it were. Mark stepped closer. Dad discovered someone had been stealing money from his company. I looked at the bank statements. You? No, then why were you receiving money? Because Dad was paying me to keep quiet. About what? Mark hesitated. About the night I saw him meet them. Who? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? I was 19, Daniel. He looked down. I was scared. I picked up another file. Why didn't you tell me? Because Dad made me promise. You've been keeping this secret for 20 years. Yes. Why? Because I thought keeping it would protect you. I shook my head. You don't get to decide that. Mark's eyes filled with tears. I know. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an old photograph. This was taken the night Dad died. I looked at it. Our father stood outside the house. Beside him were 2 men. One was the same man from the photograph in the hidden room. The other was unfamiliar. I turned the photograph over. There was a handwritten time. 11:42 p.m. Dad died at midnight, I whispered. Mark nodded. 20 minutes later. What happened? I saw them arguing. Where were you? In the garage. What did you hear? Mark closed his eyes. Dad told them he had proof. Proof of what? That they had been stealing from his company. And then? They threatened him. I stared at him. Did they kill him? I don't know. You were there. I heard a gunshot. My stomach dropped. A gunshot? Mark nodded. Then everything went quiet. What did you do? I ran. You left Dad? I was terrified. You left him there? Mark began crying. I was 19. I couldn't speak. After a moment, he continued. When I came back, Dad was already dead. Where were the men? Gone. Did you call the police? Yes. But? Before they arrived, someone called me. Who? I don't know. What did they say? Mark looked at me. They said if I told the police what I'd seen, you would be next. The room went silent. I looked at the documents again. Suddenly, the money transfers made sense. Dad had been paying Mark to protect me. But there was something else. A small envelope sat beneath the files. My name was written on it. Daniel. I opened it. Inside was a letter from my father. My hands shook as I read. Daniel, if you're reading this, then something happened to me before I could tell you the truth. Your brother knows some of it. But he doesn't know everything. There is someone you must never trust. His name is Richard Vale. I looked at Mark. Who is Richard Vale? Mark's face went pale. You found his name? Yes. Where? Dad's letter. Mark sat down. Richard was Dad's business partner. What happened to him? He disappeared. When? The same night Dad died. I looked back at the letter. There was another page. Richard knows where the money went. He also knows why I couldn't go to the police. If he ever comes back, don't believe anything he says. I folded the letter. Then I noticed a final sentence written at the bottom. The proof is not in the house. I looked at Mark. What does that mean? I don't know. Dad left us a hidden room full of evidence. But apparently the most important evidence isn't here. I searched through the remaining files. Nothing. Then I remembered something. Our father had an old workshop behind the house. He used to spend hours there. Mark and I weren't allowed inside. We went outside. The workshop was almost destroyed. The roof was damaged. The windows were broken. But the old workbench was still there. I searched every drawer. Nothing. Then I noticed one of the floorboards looked loose. I lifted it. Underneath was a small metal box. No lock. Inside was a flash drive. And a handwritten note. For Daniel only. I plugged the drive into my laptop. There was one video file. The date was the night our father died. I pressed play. My father's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted. Daniel, if you're watching this, I didn't have time to finish what I started. He took a breath. The person stealing from my company isn't Richard. I looked at Mark. We both froze. Dad continued. Richard helped me investigate. Then he whispered, the person responsible is someone much closer to us. The video suddenly froze. Then the screen went black. A message appeared. File corrupted. I stared at the screen. Mark whispered, someone deleted the rest. No, I looked at the timestamp. The video was edited. What? Someone removed part of it. I checked the file details. There was a second hidden audio track. I played it. At first, there was only static. Then my father's voice. Very quietly. Mark, my brother stepped backward. What? Dad's voice continued. If anything happens to me, don't trust. The recording ended. I looked at Mark. He was staring at me. Don't trust who? I asked. I don't know. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Nobody spoke. I said, "Who is this?" A man's voice finally came through. "You found the basement." I froze. "Who are you?" "You're asking the wrong question." "What question should I ask?" The man laughed quietly. "You should ask why your brother wanted you to sell the house." I looked at Mark. He had gone completely pale. The caller continued, "Your brother didn't bring you there to sell the house." "Then why?" "Because he knew you would eventually find the room." The call ended. I slowly lowered the phone. Mark looked at me. "Daniel," I stepped away from him. "You knew." "No, you knew I would find it." "I swear I didn't." "Then why were you so desperate to sell this house?" Mark couldn't answer. I looked at the hidden room. Then at the old photograph. Then at the letter from Dad. For 20 years, I had believed my brother was protecting me. Now I wasn't sure whether he had been protecting me, or protecting himself. Mark finally whispered, "Daniel, there is one thing I never told you." "What?" He looked toward the basement door. "Dad didn't die that night." I stared at him. "What did you just say?" Mark's voice trembled. "He survived the shooting." My heart stopped. "Then where is he?" Mark looked at me. "I don't know." A car suddenly stopped outside the house. We heard the front door open. Then footsteps. Someone had entered. Mark grabbed my arm. "Turn off the lights." "Why?" He whispered, "Because whoever is outside, he knows we're here."